In this section, we're going to learn about what API management is and how we can use it. With more and more of the technology world working to integrate with other applications, this is driving the increased use of APIs. At the same time, we need to ensure that any APIs we provide are both secure and visible only to the appropriate groups. Azure's API management is a great way to achieve this and more. Azure's API management solution gives us the ability to host our APIs in a way that provides a layer of protection between the users of that API and the product's backend services. This layer of abstraction not only provides additional security, but also allows us to create policies that we can use to control how the API management will handle the incoming requests. These policies can include restrictions on who can call the API, rate limits, or ensuring a valid token is presented. As with most things, we are constantly adding new features and improvements to our applications. For others to be able to leverage these, we need to make sure we are making changes to our APIs. API management lets us present these in a phased approach and also gives us the ability to roll back if an oops does happen. Let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture view of Azure's API management. We can see on the right we have our company's services or products. They can be hosted on one of the many services in Azure or in an external location such as on-premises or in another cloud provider. We then have our users of the API on the left. This will include the developers, other applications or users of our services, as well as the administrators. We can use API management to sit between our products and the people and applications that will be using them. This provides a layer where we can not only control who can access our products, but also how they interact with those services. There are features within API management that are specific to the type of interaction that will happen. The applications who will be using our backend products will be connecting through the API gateway. The developers who are looking to leverage our APIs will use the developer portal, and the people who need to manage our API instance will use the Azure portal. Let's start by taking a look at the developer portal. When you create an API management instance, a developer portal is created automatically. Its purpose is to provide the documentation of your APIs so the developer can learn which APIs are offered and how to use them. The portal can also be customized to meet your organization's branding needs. Additionally, you can control how the interface is presented using various widgets, layouts, and there is a built-in style guide to help. By default, there are a number of widgets available. If you need to expand beyond that, the developer's portal code base is hosted in GitHub, so you can fork the repo and create the necessary widgets as needed. When you create your API management instance, Azure creates a fully managed instance of the developer portal. You also have the option to self-host one or more developer portals. They are hosted on Azure Storage Account that has a static website feature enabled. Self-managed portals are required when you are running more than one developer portal. They are also required when you have created a custom developer portal from the GitHub code. Understanding what APIs are available and how to leverage each API is extremely important, but at the end of the day, using the services offered by the API is the ultimate goal. Let's say you have created your various products and you have your developers who need to access them. One of the most common ways that we can do this is by utilizing subscriptions. Subscriptions allow us to create scopes around the APIs we want to present. Depending on how the products relate to one another, we may use a simple one-to-one scoping for each subscription to a product. In this case, subscription A may map to product 1, or subscription B to product 2, and so on. You may also want to group multiple products to a single subscription. So we may have subscription A offers the services of both product 1 and 2. Subscription B is still a one-to-one map with product 2, but subscription C offers products 2 and 3. In this case, it may be safe to assume that product 2 is a core dependency of both product 1 and 3. You can also create a subscription to scope a single API, or you can have it include every API within the API management instance. When you have people and applications that are looking to interact with your application, many times you want to ensure they are who they say they are. This could be used to keep unauthorized users from accessing it, or it could be assist with logging. In the developer portal, we can utilize anonymous access. As it sounds, this means that there is no authorization requirement to view the API documentation. You can also utilize the locally managed credentials in the API management instance. This is useful if you have a small number of users who you need to manage access to the portal but don't want to set up an identity provider. With that said, you can also leverage an identity provider. Rather than maintaining a list of users who can access the developer portal, by letting the identity provider manage a list of users, you don't need to worry about individual user accounts. There are several identity providers that you can utilize. Some examples are Azure AD, Twitter, Google, as well as Facebook. On the API Gateway Management side, we also have 3 options in how we can authenticate. Much in the same as in the developer portal, we do have the ability to use anonymous access. We do also have subscription-based. And one thing we didn't mention when we talked about subscriptions is that each subscription will have a key associated with it. If a request comes in without a subscription key, it will be discarded. So this is a way we can use to authenticate how users access our products by using that subscription-based key. The third option is to use a client certificate to authenticate. This requires some additional configuration on the backend services in addition to configuring our API management instance. Each of these has their appropriate use case. It all depends on how you want the developers and subscribers to use your API management instance. As with most things in Azure, API management has multiple tiers that you can choose from depending on your needs. Depending on the feature set and the capacity required will help you determine which tier is appropriate for you. The first is consumption. It is the most limited tier in terms of features, but also has the lowest base cost since you only pay for the number of API calls that you use. Since it is consumption-based, it does use a shared model. It also does have some limits that you will need to be aware of regarding the size and quantity of your APIs. It does have an SLA associated with those, so that is something to keep in mind. The next is the developer tier. This is one that does offer an isolated instance, so it will have a fixed monthly cost associated with it. It only has 1 scale unit, so there's not going to be an SLA associated with it. As such, this is recommended for non-production use cases. We then have our basic tier, which offers 2 scale units, so there will be an SLA associated with it. As having twice the number of scale units, it also has roughly twice the performance of the developer tier. This would typically be used for your entry-level production workloads. The next 2 are standard and premium. These also increase the number of scale units to 4 and 10 respectively to meet your performance requirements. Additionally, they offer some more features to cover more advanced use cases. If you're more interested in comparing the various tiers, we have included a link below to help you explore some of those differences. Let's jump into the Azure portal and create our first API management instance. Once again, we're back in the Azure portal, and now we're going to be looking at setting up API management. So to start, let's go up top and search for API, and then here we can select API management services. We'll select that, and we can see we don't have any today, so let's go ahead and add a new one. So click on add, and now we're going to choose the resource group that we're going to be deploying to. And once again, we will be selecting the Skylines resource group. And now we needed to go through and define a name as well as the organization and an administrator email for this. So we'll select the Skylines APIM for the resource name. We're going to put this as Skylines, and then we're also going to set the administrator email to joe@joefact.com. The administrator email is slightly different, and APIM uses that just for notifications. So now let's go down and select the pricing tier. And you can see, if we remember back from the PowerPoints, we've got a few different options. In this case, we're going to select developer, and then we're going to go next to monitoring. We are going to set up application insights, so we'll go ahead and set that to on, and then now we're going to go ahead and select the application insights instance. And if we remember back, this is what would also be known as a codeless deployment, since we're not defining any code at this point. We'll go to scale, and scale is not an option considering we are using the developer tier. If we used one of the basic, standard, or premium, we would have that choice. We're not going to select the manage identity at this point. We can always turn that on later if we need to, and that again would be used if we wanted to integrate with Key Vault or some other Azure resource. We do have the option, since we selected developer tier, to integrate with an existing VNet. We're going to leave this off for the time being. If we go to protocol settings, you can see here we've got a number of options. We'll leave all these as the default, and we can come back and change these later if we need to. We're not going to find any tags in this instance, and then we'll go back and look at the review and create. One thing worth noting is when you create an API management instance, it can take anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour for it to deploy. Just something to be aware of as you're working through this. So let's go ahead and select create, and we'll go ahead and get that submitted. And again, this will take probably about 45 minutes to an hour. So let's go ahead and hit pause here, and we'll come back once that's deployed. So now after a while, our API management instance has been deployed. So let's go back to API management. And here we can see we've got our Skylines APIM instance, and we can validate the status is online. So let's go ahead and select it. And let's go ahead and move this off to the left. And then here we can see we've got our API management instance. And if we scroll down on the left, we've got our products, and these are two built-in products. So we've got the starter and unlimited. You can see that their state is set to publish. If we wanted to limit them to a certain group, we could do that, but you can see right now that it's available to administrators, developers, as well as guests. If we go through then and look at the subscriptions, you can see we basically have our default ones. So we've got the starter and unlimited products available, and they're both active. And if we go through and look at the APIs here, we can see we just have our default Echo API. And let's go ahead and kick this off to the left, give us a little more space. And we can go through here and you can see we've got our various operations. So we've got post, put, so on and so forth. We can select the option. We can also go test and then do just a sample request to validate that it's working. So this just gives you some of the abilities to see what you can do within the APIs. You can look at our settings here to see what specifically it's being looked at. Again, if there's any products it's associated with, requirement for security, and so on and so forth. So it just gives you a lot of options. Additionally, we can get into some policies, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So now that we have basically our APIs defined, or the operations defined, we've got our API and we've got our product. And if we go back to API management and look, we've got our subscription set up so that we've got everything basically flowing up so that it can be consumed. Now we need to go to developer portal. So to do that, let's go to overview and let's go ahead, to do that, let's go to developer portal and then let's go take a look at it. So here we've got our basic developer portal. And since we've accessed that from the Azure portal from within the API management instance, we can come in here and we can edit. So let's go ahead and let's update this to say, welcome to Skylines Academy. Helps if you spell, huh? And we'll go ahead and leave that. And then you see we've got a couple different options. If we wanted to change the font, we'll go ahead and leave that. And we don't like this Contoso up here, so let's go ahead and get rid of that. I think that looks pretty good. Now that we've got that, we're going to go down here and save the changes, and then we'll go down to publish. So we'll give that a second to publish here. And let's go up here. Let's copy that URL. And then let's go ahead and open up a new private browser window and let's paste that in there. Since we're not signing in from the Azure portal, we'll be accessing this in a way an external developer would. We'll give it a second to load here. And you can see we've got our changes there. So it's saying welcome to Skylines Academy. And now we can go through and look at the APIs that are out there. And you can see we should have our Echo API. So now a developer will be able to go in here and take a look at this. And he would be able to see the various operations associated with the Echo API. So let's say Git, and he can go through and look to see, okay, here's what it's doing, here's the parameters that are required, so on and so forth. And if he wanted to try it out, he has the capability to go through here and do that and hit send so he can validate everything works. This is the advantage of API management, or one of the advantages of API management. It gives the developer the ability to come in and take a look at the products that you're offering, the APIs associated with each product, as well as the operations within those APIs. And then you can see how to use each one of the APIs and also test prior to writing the code so they know how to define their code or how to write their code to integrate with your API. Hopefully this helps. Let's go back and take a look at some of the policies that we can define for our APIs.